Yeah, cool. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Um, let's see how I can do that here. All right. Y'all see it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, M3taloot. Um, and just to kind of start things off about this project, I want to overview like what is M3 because I mentioned M3 season one, um, and I've got some cool metaphors for that. Catalyzing a metaverse maker community around this collection, avatar interoperability, and a preview and how to get involved. So to start things off, just kind of like the current state of the open metaverse feels equivalent to early America, with all these separate colonies all on the same land, and many more are now arriving on the shores of Web3 in search of freedom. And it feels like we're kind of also in this join or die meme moment with like big meta growing in power, while like the open metaverse is like super decentralized. And during this period in early American history, the original like founding fathers were they published a series of essays called the Federalist Papers to rally support under the pseudonym Publius. And nowadays it feels like NFTs are the new printing press. And what M3 is focused on is making like really dank, epic NFTs. Like wearables, weapons, and vehicles, and pets, and having an inventory as well to carry all these NFTs across various virtual worlds, while essentially building these roads and bridges between platforms facilitated through open standards and file formats. And I'm really inspired by like how the Silk Road connected the ancient world together, because I think it does take like economic incentives as well as quality products, like what ancient Chinese silk did back then. And that it feels like that's the equivalent of dank NFT avatar wearables today. And so, like, ultimately, the founding fathers were successful in securing support for the Constitution. And, that's the aim right here, too, with something like a smart contract probably for us in this Web3 era. And M3, it's a community of metaverse makers and builders from all sorts of different projects and all sorts of different platforms who want to make things more compatible. We've done a lot of different event formats like group field trips, expos, lightning talks, and art shows and whatnot. And just kind of inspiration for the name, it was inspired by like the World Wide Web, and a lot of us are WebXR devs, and we were like flipping the web upside down. So I got like this www logo, and then I got like the Federalist Party logo, and I mashed them up together to create the M3 logo. I think it looks pretty cool. And yeah, so far, like collaborating under this umbrella, we've got Webiverse that 3D modeled all of the loot assets, and Loot, of course, which is this whole decentralized community, and Metafactory as well, which they have a project. You can check it out on Loot Watcher. It's called M3taloot without the three, and it's physical merch purchasable with adventure gold. So you can claim like your own loot bag embroidered like with this physical merch, and stay really cozy and this gear. And what I do at Metafactory is I work on avatar wearables and leading this kind of working group of making digital avatar wearables interoperable for any kind of base model, because different platforms have different specs and guidelines. And here's my avatar inside of Webiverse. So we already have this kind of vibe going on between Webiverse and Metafactory and Loot, as we'll get into right now. So this is kind of like we've got these iron chefs of the metaverse coming together, and season one is all about Loot. And why? Because, I think it's like a shelling point for metadata and composability aspects of NFTs, which is something that we really want to teach in a community of people that are generally new to Web3. Like, we want to expose them to the deeper level concepts of NFTs, going beyond the art. And Loot is a perfect example. And also it can be a catalyst for L2 adoption, which is, I think, really important for game dev. Like, if you slay a monster and it drops loot, you don't want to pay mainnet gas fees in order to pick that up. Getting used to L2 and stuff. And it's accessible as well. Every wallet has at least a synthetic loot bag. And so, if we want to grow a community of metaverse makers and builders, I think it's, y'all are familiar with probably this graphic that came from Twitter threads in the early days. Bottom-up approach is the way to go. Making things that makers can make things with. That's how you attract metaverse makers and build a culture that's kind of like a virtual hackerspace vibe, which is what we want. We want to release NFTs that, instead of like waiting for when drop, whatever, we want to get people involved and make things with. So Loot is a perfect ingredient for us all to cook with. And so, right now we've got like these visualizers, but none of them are kind of like game dev ready. For it to be like game dev ready, we need like 3D models or sprite sheets. And so what M3taloot is, it's a set of remixable and composable assets that you can use in your projects. It's rigged to a standard VRM armature. I'll get into that later. The Webverse art team did an incredible job designing and 3D modeling all of the loot assets. All of them, weapons, armor, gear, like, it's all there. And we can remix these into special traits and, auras and glows for various things. But just take a look at the detail on these. You can really tell, like, they paid a lot of attention and care into the details of these assets. It's not just making a necklace or sword. It's like, it's got a cool style to it. Here's, I think, like a tome or chronicle or something. So really starting out high quality, high detail. Here's like I think a demon crown and a ring, and just take a look at that ring. It's like, really, it's a tiny object, but it's so much detail going into it. And we want to be compatible with all sorts of avatar-based models. I'm kind of overseeing a lot of NFT projects that are coming out with 3D avatars, and we want to create a community that we're kind of working on projects around metaverse interoperability and wearables. Instead of like creating a new avatar collection, wearables are something that can be compatible with many avatar collections, while guiding us all towards open interoperable standards as well. And on the right is an animation the Webverse team made with character wearing the loot assets. They're not just like an art team, they're building a whole engine, a web-based crypto native game engine. It's an amazing project. It's on GitHub. I spent the past couple days voxelizing all the assets, so they're also all compatible soon with CryptoVoxel's avatars as well. So we'll have that. And I've got some ideas for monetizing. I'd like to get some feedback here from. We can come back to this slide later, but I'm just thinking like what would be better, you think, like for this project? Because we want to fund like the next chapter, which I'll show you a preview of soon, and really make some like awesome stuff with this. Like, we've got amazing talent in the VR and game dev industry, and then we can incubate with Web3 folks and do some really crazy stuff with virtual productions. So we'll come back to this in a bit. Let me show you a little preview of what we got, a concept for chapter 2. We don't know what's fun yet, but I think trading cards are the perfect format to explore ideas around fun. MetaFactory can help out with the physical fulfillment of trading cards, and Webverse created a trading card generator that we can pipe these assets into. And artists can help collaborate on some of the art, as well as the card backs as well. And we can really play around with, trading cards to mimic on-chain interactions, like something being sent to the grave can mimic like a burn function, or buffing a card can mimic like um, a composability aspect of it. And because of our community, we can do AR and VR type stuff as well, like Yu-Gi-Oh type of things, in VR, AR cards, and it's super cool and metaversey. Like, remember that animation I showed you back then? Like, imagine that, like spawning a card, and it's like it kills a monster, and it's just ideas to really experiment with what's fun. Um, and then we can like make actual in-world stuff with it. So if anyone also is interested in getting involved, I kind of wrote up some ideas for like onboarding into this community. Like I created a guide on how to get good, like making an avatar and learning Blender and stuff. Can take a look at that repo. People who are can type fast, can take notes during meetings and Twitter Spaces. We have some virtual events, so we're looking for camera people to help out with the production side of things, and artists can get involved with remixing or creating cool concept art around these things. Builders who, just really easy building tools. We can create presence of MetaLoot across virtual worlds, because we need to, we want to build like these trading posts like along the virtual Silk Road. So builders are needed. And if you have other ideas, feel free to DM me afterwards. Anything you got. And you'll get a cool POAP for that. That's the design up there. And these POAPs are going to be avatar wearables in the future. So you'll make a statement as you travel across the metaverse wearing that POAP, knowing you're an M3 OG. And with that, I just want to give a shout out. The Webverse art team did an amazing job designing and modeling all the assets. Metafactory robots, really grateful for contribution, strategy, collaborating together on various aspects around the Web3. Dom for pretty much setting this all off, and for all of you for listening. And questions, comments.
Thank you for sharing, Jin. I know everybody was mind blown in the last call, and so being able to see an even more structured version of this presentation was great.
No problem.
If you want to dive in, unmute and hop right in.
Say that's probably the best presentation I've seen in any Discord call ever. I just want to. That's the first thing that I want to share. Like, absolutely, like you had a story for it, and you had a historical reference to like the founding of America. Like that was great. That's the first. That's actually the first thing that I wanted to say. I actually do have a comment. But I really think that should be acknowledged, and that was a treat for everyone. The feedback that I had was I like the approach of like sort of like a asset library for all of the different 3D like I saw animations, I saw characters, I saw all the different types of attachments and things like that. My question is this like well, first I have a question of, are the asset sets like definitive, or is it like, can I mix and match, and maybe like I see someone on OpenSea has made a great 3D model for a crown that has purple flames, and I like purple better. Is that something that someone can individually mix and match a set together? Or is it like this is the definitive set of what these assets look like?
My suggestion, I think, like I'm kind of proposing this concept with, since it's pre-released, to be CC0 for ultimate like remixability. And so just kind of launching this, we can see all sorts of remixes, and it's a reference points as well for like the measurements to be compatible with many avatar based models. So I'd love to see all sorts of wacky, crazy remixes, alternate reality versions of them. And yeah.
And so that's cool. That's really cool. That opens the door for a lot of artists to be able to contribute their own takes, which people have already done. So it seems like they would be able to integrate into the system that you've created, using the assets that you've created in the first pass as sort of like a model for how to actually execute there. That's great.
Yep.
Second, and it's this sort of like a follow up in sort of the same vein. Do you see this as being specific to the loot, as being sort of like specific to the loot inventory items, or is this something that you think can maybe expand to cover like the folks with realms, like the realms biblioteca, they have someone that's working on rendering voxels, and they're sort of turning their realms into some other visualization. And it seems like that is an opportunity for an artist to also come in with specific renditions for how they would realize those things, how they would realize like rendering a realm in a 2 or 2.5D or 3D, and then also like Crypts and Caverns, which is sort of like a maps related project where there are randomly generated dungeons, like an art project. They also have right now just sort of like 2D assets, but there have been explorations of taking it into like traditional 2D of like, you know, like a Dragon Warrior or Breath of Fire or something like that. Like, is this? I guess I'm saying that. So to stop talking and rambling, um, is this something that is specific to inventory items, or could it also be sort of an expansion into this is the asset library for the loot verse or for the loot, whatever we're calling it right now.
Yeah.
But this is like the asset library for loot, and this is the first instance of the most generic component of the loot verse that we have.
It's more like a community that, you know, anything they touch becomes more metaversy. And so like I looked at like realms, for instance, and I'm like, yeah, totally, we can like, you know, develop around that. And you know, I'm just kind of thinking of it as like seasons of Iron Chef, where we're picking out an ingredient and we're all hacking away at it. And I'd love to like experiment with these and, you know, different chapters. So you know, if we want to bring projects into like the open metaverse, you know, there's guidelines for like what file formats you want to go for, what, you know, optimizations and all that. And so we want to build a community that feels like a virtual hackerspace, that we share knowledge, and we collaborate, and we have fun, you know, working on just really dank projects together, combining like XR and Web3 peeps together. XR meaning AR and VR, or, you know,
Yeah.
general 3D.
All right, cool. That's a great response.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just a quick time check. I do definitely want to give Loot Swag a chance to share here, and I also want to give Banners a chance to share, and I think the Banners team may also have a similar presentation. But any other comments, pop them into general, or if anybody has a pressing comment, I think maybe last 1 or 2 questions or comments to Jin here. Really cool. Maybe Jin, in one sentence, what should people look out for next? Like, where should they go to pay attention to this, or what should they be looking out for, and what kind of time frame? Nice. When you're ready, let's open up an outpost in the official Loot Discord here too.